Welcome to the Accounting Technology Lab, sponsored by CPA Practice Advisor, with your hosts, Randy Johnston and Brian Tankersley.
Hey, welcome to the Accounting Technology Lab. I'm your host, Randy Johnston, with co-host Brian Tankersley. Now, today we'd like to talk about a platform called the Digilence Experience Cloud. Now, Digilence has been evolving over quite a few years. We've been following them as they've been doing their build out. And it is basically a subscription-based AI platform to try to modernize and integrate, automate, and transform accounting firms. Now, the Digilence Cloud has evolved into a single platform trying to power our firms. And the business's goal is to try to get everybody to think digital first. And that's pretty good. So the way the Digilence Cloud is powering the digital firm is by doing this integration, automation, and transformation. Now, Brian, that's a little tough to kind of wrap your head around. But to me, there's only been a few products that have tried to integrate the experience because, setting this up a little bit further for your comments, traditionally firms have bought one suite from Walters Kluwer or from Thomson Reuters and then tried to integrate a few other things. But sometimes this integrating other things didn't go. And we've watched it in our accounting firm operations technology survey where firms converted from single suite to trying to buy a lot more best of breeds. And then you had to try to glue all this stuff together. And
Yeah,
the
and they really forgot how difficult it was when we had products that weren't integrated. It's the old saying of the grass is greener over the septic tank, with apologies to the late Irma Bombeck.
Yeah, understood. So could you try to give a little bit of a vision on what it means to integrate and automate and transform? Because I do like Digilence's words in that area, and I think they've got it right. Uh, and it'll be an interesting thing to see if the market can understand what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, what they're really trying to do here is to do the integration that had to be done by hand in SAP and Oracle Financials and all the other platforms that are used by big companies. And so, what they're doing here is they're effectively setting it up where it doesn't matter which specific application it goes into, the data just goes and the process happens. Okay, so it's really trying to build some business logic into here. And in some cases, we have APIs where we can have programmed connections. In other places, we have to use robotic process automation to get things going. But what we're doing here is we're really moving the documents and moving the work in a fashion which is more consistent with the way business is getting done in the billion-dollar plus organizations. And this may be a surprise to some of you that this level of integration, everything's been happening like this in those organizations for 20 plus years if you don't work with them. But this kind of stuff again is creeping its way all the way down into startups. And so when we're thinking about these things, having the ability to scale and having the ability to handle things on a more systematic basis using processes as opposed to having to go in and do things a different way is really a significant benefit here.
Yeah, so just to clarify maybe a couple of things that you said, APIs, application program interfaces. It turns out many of the products in the profession do not have the standard published way of interfacing. Only a few do. Now, I was fortunate just a week before we recorded this session, I spoke with a long-term friend of Brian and mine about Go File Room, and his effort in Go File Room has been to create a lot of APIs in the platform. And it was very fascinating to listen to that. But if you look at the major products from Wolters Kluwer and Thomson Reuters and Iris and HG Capital's Caseware and so forth, there's just not that many APIs that have been out there. So large firms have taken a strategy of any new platform that they buy, They want it to be able to do single sign-on and have APIs available, and that it is SOC certified. Those are three real common. If you can't do those things, you can't play. Well, Digilance took on a pretty big task here of trying to connect everything. Now, loosely, I know this is oversimplification. I've looked at this as one of the many uh, platforms that can be used to do an all-in-one portal. And Brian and I know you and I have been talking about this for at least half a dozen years at this point, trying to get firms onto a single portal. But to be able to do that, you have to be able to connect anything to anything. And that's what Digilance has done in their new platform called Symphony. It really is a way to connect these various items together.
Yeah, and again, there's services out there like Zapier and CloudWork and Power Automate and others out there. This is really, though, those services do a lot of things with a lot of the horizontal applications and even vertical industry applications, but very few of those do anything with the solution from Wolters Kluwer and Iris and Thomson Reuters and Intuit and other things like that. This really gives you the tool set, though, to where if it has APIs, it'll integrate with them. If it doesn't have APIs, they'll use robotic process automation to work with it as well. And so it really gives you a way of taking these legacy applications and modernizing them through the use of robotic process automation. And so they have the scale that they can do the RPA programming and setup and everything for multiple folks and amortize the cost over that, as opposed to having to go in and you having to go in and do every single thing yourself and learn RPA at the same time.
Yeah, and it turns out the robotic process automation that you're referring to, that's where we actually saw Digilance first showing up because they were automating e-filing through an RPA process. And now they're matured enough that they have the SaaS integrations to leverage the APIs where they can. And then they've added some workflow automation. And now they've extended to more integration and automation. So if you think about a tax automation end to end, which gathers documents and prepares the documents, reviews, delivers, and files, they're doing a pretty good job on most of those steps. Do they have them all at this point? No, but they're pretty close. And through their new Digilance API, they can actually structure data models to connect to most of the tools that you would refer to in the marketplace. So again, products like Iris's Practice Engine or CCH's Access Practice Management or traditional product that we've talked about like ShareFile or SurePrep or DocuSign, a generic product. They are trying to interface to all of those different systems, and they're taking the burden of all of this complexity off your plate, which I think is a pretty good and noble venture. But they've put one more thing with it now that I think is the secret sauce. And that is that they've built a cloud app suite. And the idea of this cloud app suite is to try to work around the issues with portal solutions. A lot of the portals that are out there are old and outdated technology. So I'm not out of school on saying this. Net Client CS from Thomson Reuters, it's 25 years old and it's built on an old and outdated technology.
Yeah,
And
net client CS listened to the Foo Fighters when they were a new band. Just think about that.
yeah, that is absolutely the case. And for most of our firms, we have multiple separate systems. So we're trying to do PBC documentation and document requests and so forth through separate systems. And we've talked about what would be competitors in this light, the Lycios of the world or the HubSyncs in other sessions. But the problem with most of these other solutions is they're not integrated or consolidated, and there's no modern integrated way to get AI to work And each platform, by the time you pay for it, is too costly. We talk to many firms where they buy, two and three and four products to solve the problem. And by the time you add those all up, it becomes actually quite expensive to do. So there's just too many systems in most of our firms. And if we can get this whole end-to-end process for tax and audit and client accounting services in a single portal platform, that's something that I know, Brian, you and I have been talking about for, a fairly good number of years. But the key learnings here with Digilence is I think their system is absolutely working at this point. They've got this integrated piece of Symphony with their APIs now working. And I think it might give us the chance to leverage their AI systems on internal client data and workflow. So, Brian, what do you think about that particular claim?
I think that's a very interesting thing because, again, we've had these islands of automation, to quote Jeffrey Moore here, for years. And the problem is there's not been one app to rule them all. And the nice thing about this is this actually gives you that. And they're not, they're not vested in you only using one particular vendor's applications or whoever's. They're trying to be pretty, as we'd refer to it, ecumenical or again vendor agnostic here, as we're trying to figure out what you want to integrate together. So this, I guess the thing I would say here is this empowers modern workflows in legacy applications. So you can keep the legacy applications to the extent you want to. Again, to your point, Randy, doing things like retrieving e-file acknowledgments out of legacy tools and then putting that into your systems on an automated basis. You can do things like that with this, and they're doing that at scale today. And so you don't have to go in and try to figure out what is RPA, how does it work, and then deal with the refining of the RPA models and setup the way you have to so many times when you're using that for the first time. What's great about this now is that you can have all this set up. They have a data store, and now you can do natural language queries off of things through their new Symphony platform to see what's happening across all these things. And I could honestly see hooking up a business intelligence system to this and setting yourself up some dashboards that show you, okay, who's working, who's not working, what's blowing up, what are the fires I need to put out right now that are going on. And it really gives you a way to get better real-time information across your stack of applications.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting position, Brian. I hadn't considered. Help me interpret my dashboard. Tell me who's working on what. Most of the time when I've thought about Digilence, I've thought about them as automating processes end to end. The robotic process automation probably got me down that path. But this whole idea of eventually being able to automate a tax return end to end, I can see that starting to happen with some of the AI platforms that are out there, but we still have to get the documents in, we still have to get the review done, and we still got to get the final work out with the billing.
When I was in practice at a larger firm, we used to have all these partner manager meetings, and it would always gall me to look around the room because I'd go around and say, okay, that's a $400 an hour attendee, that's a $200 $300 hour attendee, that's a $150 an hour attendee. And you'd add it up and you'd be burning 20K in that hour where you'd have people sitting around that big conference table. What I love about this gives you the ability to have more real-time information so that you don't have to spend as much time updating things on stuff, because I need to be there for the stuff where I'm updating my stuff, but I don't need to be there for the updates on the other departments and the other partners and other things like that in there. And so this lets you make better use of your time by giving you better real-time information, so there's less that has to be discussed that's blown up in a forum like a very expensive partner manager meeting.
Yeah, and you actually got me also thinking about how many of our workflow systems are very manual and very outdated technology. And I'm looking for the time that this might even automate our workflows by learning what we're doing and making suggestions on how to optimize the workflows. We know that's happening in other worlds.
Oh, very good. Well, I think it's definitely worth a look for everybody. The nice thing about this is you can engage it with your legacy applications today, and then you can turn around and hook them up to your next gen applications as you make those conversions. So
Yeah,
a lot of opportunity here.
a lot of opportunity. Well, we do appreciate you listening on this accounting technology lab on Digilence. We hope we'll see you again on a future lab. Good day.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We'll be back next Saturday with a new episode of the Technology Lab from CPA Practice Advisor. Have a great week.